In this lesson right here, what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at how we can create textures for our weapon for Unreal Tournament. Now, what we've got right now is the textures that we have proposed. These are what we've created for our weapon. Of course, you create your own, however you'd like. And these, again, are based off of preliminary sketches done by the person who actually designed the weapon. And we're not going to walk through. Hey, how you doing, Philip? And we're not going to walk through every single texture in Photoshop, but we're going to go through enough of them to give you a real good idea, pretty much how we created all of them. So with that, now that we've seen the weapon texture, let's go ahead and open up our weapon again. Okay, this is where we left it last. And now from here, what we want to do first is go ahead and open up our UVW wrap. There we go, our unwrap modifier. And from inside here, Philip is going to take a screenshot of this that we're going to use as our reference for actually painting the textures.
Yay. All right, so to do this, I'm just going to come in and hit print screen here, and then I'm going to toggle over to Photoshop. And here's actually the map that I painted for the gun. And so this is all hand-painted. There's no internet pictures downloaded or stuff scanned. It's just using brushes inside Photoshop. So that is also how we're going to be recreating them, if you want. So I'm going to say File, New, and Control-V to paste in my snapshot or my screenshot. And then I'm going to, looking at my info up here at the width and height, going to be creating a square texture. And the reason I'm creating a square texture is that Unreal only takes textures at the power of 2. In this case, we're going to be shooting a texture that looks something like 512 by 512. And maybe put this back in a little bit. There we go. Something like that size, and of course...
And he was using the crop tool, by the way.
Okay, so crop tool up here. And right now we're fine 19, 5 by 5, 19, so I'll come in and change the size down proportionally to 512 by 512. Alright, so this we have right here, as I said, is going to be the guide on how we're going to be painting our texture, or where we should be painting our texture. So the first thing I'm going to create is, for instance, a little barrel down here. So I'll come out here and use my little polygon lasso tool. I can zoom in and scroll down here, like such, and simply just draw out this little outline. Go ahead and make a new layer we can put it on. So, tink, 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 tink. Alright, we're getting there. And again, you could say, well, can't we just fill in the whole thing because the UV will only lie there? And yeah, you could just do a general area, but it's kind of nice to have them only appear where the text actually really should be. It just helps. It also, when you see looking at the finished map, that you can really easily identify what area is what. So this is obviously the barrel, and I'm going to go in there and rename it to barrel. And I'm actually going to create a folder and stick it in and name this barrel as well. And then I'll rename this back to, let's call this base. So in this case, we can, because we're going to have so many layers in this composite. The other one had, I think there's probably about 40 or 50 layers in there. So in this one, we're going to start out by organizing everything by sticking them into folders. So the barrel, the base color is going to be, if we look over here, somewhat of a, maybe I should just minimize it like this. Somewhat like of a muddy green or muddy gray. I think it's really important that you don't use too saturated colors. Other than that, your color choice can be pretty much whatever you want. So this, again, maybe one a little bit brighter and maybe a little bit less saturated, something like that. And then I'll just go in and fill this area with it. So hit fill here, and now we got that filled. Next thing I'll do is we want to add some texture. If we look at the other one here, it has a lot of texture to it. And the way I did this is first I created a noise, maybe not that terribly strong, maybe something like that. And then, again, it was a monochromatic noise. Go in and perhaps speckle this up a little bit so it'll get a little larger noise, and then we'll use a blur to kind of soften it out. So come down to texture and go to, texture, grain, and perhaps take the intensity down a little bit here. Oh my god, I was like, wonder why not speckling. I've had it on regular. I've been using this so much that I'm just assuming that it would be on speckler when I came in. So speckle, take the intensity down here and take this contrast down so it's not too hard of a contrast between the two, perhaps 6.
And in case somebody's wondering, why didn't you just go straight to the speckle first?
Because you wouldn't have got anything out of it.
Exactly. You needed that noise texture in there.
Exactly. So we'll come in here and filter and blur this, Gaussian blur, and perhaps turn this up a little bit. Something like that, just to get some kind of background. You can see I have the same thing going on if we look on the finished one out here. Right, so then the next thing I'm going to do is actually start burning certain areas. So I'll get my burn tool and get a slightly smaller brush here, or use something like that. Pressure's 30, so that's okay. And just kind of start burning around where I want the gun to fire from, the actual barrels to be situated. Something like this. Something like this.
So it's going to end up being kind of like scorched marks or burn marks.
Exactly, burn marks are where the fire from the gun comes out. And then once we've done this, perhaps we could take a little bit larger, softer brush and just kind of do some burnt marks everywhere. Right, something like this. I think I'll make it slightly different. I won't put in a center here. I might just do the circles out here. We'll see. The reason why I'm saying this is because if we want to do the center, we got to make sure that it's dead aligned with our with the part of our barrel here. If you don't have a center that's exactly centered, when you animate the gun, it's going to look like it's wobbling.
Right.
So we can create. We'll keep it on a separate layer in case my precision is not completely accurate. Then we can always go back and move it. All right. So with this, I'll move these guys just for now out of the way. I'm going to come in and actually create the gun holes here. So I'm going to create a new layer here, barrel holes would be the correct thing to say. And create an ellipse holding a shift, and Alt at the same time. We'll make it go out from the center and make it be. Hello, try this again. There we go. So holding Shift and Alt is because I had a selection already. Then Alt functions as a subtraction. So make sure you have nothing selected when you do this. It's going to do a circle rather than an ellipse. How do you know ellipse?
Sounds good to me.
All right. So maybe a size like that. And I'm going to come in and just fill it. You can either fill it with a black or just a very, very dark version of our color here. If you don't want to go completely towards black. Come in and fill this here and move it over. And perhaps, I guess the size okay. Maybe we want to make it a little bit smaller. A little bit smaller
because your burn marks are kind of hidden now.
Maybe something like that. And so we want this to appear everywhere. So the way to do this is basically come in and hold Alt and just drag, and it'll duplicate it over on the same layer, though. Okay, so something like that. Then the next thing we want to do is, if we look at the other one, and this looks like some black spheres almost that are very, very flat, casting a drop shadow on our background. If we look over here, we have kind of like an embossed, somewhat of an embossing going on. Now, I didn't create that using the emboss tool. I did a drop shadow. Let me go ahead and put this, oops, not like that. Put this in the center also. Something like this. So I'm eyeballing it now. So if it's not completely right, we'll have to go back and change it. And put this somewhere in the center. Okay, like that. Maybe a little bit up. You can use your arrow keys to steer it if you want to. Okay, so with this, I'm going to come in now and looks like that kind of chopped off here.
Yeah, it does.
We can go back to thinking. I probably have to go all the way back if I want to actually have to where, if I want to have a perfect circle. Let's see if this gives me a little bit better result.
Looks like that may be a little cut off too.
Yeah, it looks cut off up there.
You can just draw out a new circle for the center. I don't think the ones for the actual...
Yeah, perfect circles.
Yeah, I don't think those are much of a problem.
All right, so we'll just make a new one. Like that.
There you go.
And same layer, we'll fill it. and put it in here in the center. All right. Then what we want to do is come under Effects, and as I said, we're going to be using a drop shadow to kind of blending them in here. So drop shadow, and I'm going to be turning it up to 100, and I'm going to turn this to a brighter color, something like this, but much, much brighter. So turn brightness up, something like this perhaps, and then take the spread down, the size down, and take the distance down, and let's go ahead and put normal. So now they look like they're being cut out, just like we have the same effect going on out here. Oh, gotta get off this one, sorry. It doesn't look like it's a shadow. It looks like they're actually, if I zoom in, you can see a little
it's
better.
An illusion that's going on.
Looks like over here they're being cut out, or it's actually holes we've punched through rather than just being a drop shadow. Now to push this a little bit further, we should probably come down to the base here, and let's go ahead and add some more noise again. Just as maybe a 2. Yeah, something like that looks good. And then we can go in further, perhaps burn it up a little bit. The burn tool and your whatchamacallit, the dodge tool are your friends when it comes to creating realistic textures, because they add that little bit of interest. So let's try the dodge tool here, and say for instance, create like a little, we can create a little rounding effect here. Come in here. Where did he go? There he is. And just kind of paint, and you can see we can kind of start creating a little bit of a highlight on the opposite side. Take this down like this, so it looks like that. And I drew one similarly up there. We can do that as well. Zoom in here. So burning and dodging, great tools. I remember when I first started out using Photoshop and never used them, but lately it's been probably my favorite tool. Okay, so that's pretty much what this texture looks like. Perhaps this is a little bit too saturated, so you might want to come in and throw an adjustment layer on here. That was a mask. An adjustment layer on here, and do hue saturation, and perhaps put it up here. Make sure it's above everything. Actually, we don't want to affect the black, but if you want to affect the black, you'd have, I guess, have to pull this below him. But in this case, I just want to affect the green, so I'll just keep it just above the base color. Double-click this guy, and perhaps take the saturation down a little bit, and maybe turn it a little bit darker. I'm going to turn the base layer off, so I'm not looking at that as well. There we go. And come down here and back into my adjustment layer. And you can even shift the color. Say you wanted more of a yellow color, we can take a little bit over there. So now it's just quite as green. So that's going to basically function as our the barrel of the mouth of the gun, just like this does over here. You see my speckle was perhaps a little bit stronger over here than they are over here, and my highlights were perhaps a little bit softer. So if we wanted, we can come back in and perhaps take our drop shadow down a tad, like that, to make it a little bit more soft.
That's good.
All right.
I think they get the idea from that one.
Okay. So maybe next time, now we'll create, oops, zoom out a little bit. Which one did you want to create next?
Yeah, it's up to you. Pick one. Sure.
This one?
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm pointing at the screen with my finger.
Yeah, it doesn't quite capture that.
Against this guy here. So this time, I'm going to come in and go ahead and show my background again. I'll pull it above my barrel layer here for now. I'll just turn it on. And so what we want to modify now is, or not modify, what we paint on is this area up here. So again, it's going to be the same procedure. Close the barrel and create a new folder for this guy. Just keep everything nice and neat. And I'll call this side. I'll drag this guy above, this guy below. And in the side, I'm going to create a new layer. And on this layer, I'm going to start painting. So click, Perhaps let me zoom in a little bit before I start doing all these. Let's zoom over here. Okay. And again, there's of course, this is not the only way that I'm showing to achieve the same kind of texture. I'll just go down here, and come over here. And then pick a somewhat of a common color as we had before. So I'll come down here and pick a color here, maybe a lighter color, something like that. Come up here and perhaps make it a little bit brighter. So this gun is probably going to have a slightly green tint to it since I chose a kind of somewhat of a green color to begin with. So I'll fill this in, and again, this looks somewhat a lot brighter. So perhaps I should go ahead and brighten this up. Maybe that'll be better. And then go in and use the same technique here. I'm going to go in and noise, but instead of speckle, I'll do something different. You can see we got kind of a streaking action going on. And the way I do that is come down to add noise. And let's go ahead and add 4 this time. And it's monochromatic. And then we'll go in and add a motion blur. And you got to be a little bit careful with your motion blur because when it gets too strong, it'll kind of fade off at the edges, which you can always cover up with some burnt marks. So maybe an angle of 90 here and maybe 10 to get somewhat of some texture look somewhat like that. And then, excuse me, we can start coming in and burning up this texture. So again, use your burn tool. There we go. And starting the edges, another reason why you often want to burn the edges is if you have an edge blending into another that you forget about. Well, if you've burned both textures, then they're not going to be as visible as if they're very, very bright colors. Let me turn this up a little bit and get my size down a little bit. Okay. So something like that, perhaps. And then we'll come in and we're going to put another noise on here. I usually always end up with a noise on my textures, whether it be 1 or 2. I feel like maybe, can you do decimals in here? Yeah, you can. So 1.5 will work good. Then let's go ahead and add the main thing here, our big circle. The way I did that was create a new layer. And then, and again, you should be naming all your layers, but I'm being bad about this right now. Always try to name your layers, and you won't be able to move it around. I want to point out, like, if you use the move tool and try to move it, you won't be able to do this. So use you make sure you're in selection here and use your keys or move your mouse. If you go over to the little thing, it's going to think you're trying to cut. So be careful that you remain on the little selection area rather than using the what should we call this thing? Select and move. Make sure you remain on the selection tool.
And also, you're just pointing out real quick, your texture is backwards there.
So. I was just thinking that. Okay. I was just I'm right here on the layer. It's just about, let's go see.
I'm going to bring the circle to the other side.
I think so. So yeah. This gun goes down here. All right. Thank you, Mr. Jason.
No problem.
So we'll put this about down here, and I'm just starting to get a feel for this. So we're going to be having our streaks running here, then a little space, and then him about here, I'd say.
Right.
All right. So here.
I want to kind of center him up a little, though. I mean, he's kind of centered over there.
Okay. All right. So we'll go ahead and move him down a little bit to the right. Is that better?
Yeah, that's good.
Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and fill this. I'm going to go ahead and turn this back up to 100 so we can see the layer completely. And now I'm going to come in and fill it. So I'll get a black again or a dark green and fill this area. And now to punch this into a surface below, I'm going to use another effect. And this time I'll use the more commonly used bevel and emboss. So we want to go down in this case, and instead of using smooth, I'm going to use chisel soft. And that'll create these kind of ridges you're also seeing over here. And then you can achieve a lot by using, I'm going to turn off global light so I don't affect my other effects in the scene. A lot can be achieved, a lot can be changed by moving around your global light. I'll put it, like, see, about there, and maybe turn up my depth a little bit. Okay. Let's see. Hit OK. So this is pretty much how I created this little ring in here. You can see mine wasn't pitch black, as I pointed out. I used more of a mildly green, grayish color, but very, very low in value. But the same kind of effect, soft chisel will give you these ridges. Now to create the lines here, what I did was I used what's called a pillow emboss. So I created lines. So I'll create a new layer here. And again, we should be naming these. But for the sake of time, I won't do it. And in this case, I'm going to start with a line coming from here. Oh, my bad. Coming from here and running down here. If you hold Shift, you'll get a straight line. And same thing, click here and hold Shift, and you'll get a 45-degree angle. So this will be this line down here, and this will be the line up here. And then similarly, in the other end, maybe create a line that comes out here, and then goes up here, and maybe a line that goes here. I'll do slightly different just for fun. That comes out there. And then to punch these guys into our surface, we're going to be using, as I said, a pillow emboss. So come down to Bevel and Emboss. And this can be kind of tricky. It doesn't always give you the exact result you want. Choose Pillow Emboss for the list. And let's go ahead and try and change the depth first. So we can make it a little bit pronounced. So a little bit pronounced now. And then perhaps change the size a little bit down, so it's a little bit more tight. So I'm happy with this. I'm going to hit OK. And then you can come out and change your fill down. What that will do is take the color information, the color lines I drew away. So I'll take this out. So it's just more of a groove than anything else. Perhaps this is a little bit too strong. Let me come back in here. In other words, I'm not changing the opacity of the effect. I'm really just sucking out color. So come down to Bevel and Emboss, and perhaps turn this down a little bit. We might need to adjust the global light. The light. So I'll turn off Use Global Light, and try and change this around, and see if I can get rid of the kind of staircase effect I'm having. Tell you what, I don't want to sit here and play this too long. Instead, I'll just hit Cancel. And come in here and just create a layer just below it. And this is kind of a cheat way of doing it. Merging this layer down will get rid. Merging this layer down will get rid of your effect. So now we have no effect, but we still have the same look, and then we can come in and blur it. Actually, just using a blur tool, so we can get rid of this guy here. That did the trick. And get rid of the staircases over here. So a little cheat, but for the sake of me not sitting tweaking the chisel, the emboss for too long, we'll do it this way. Okay? All right. So now we have this. Perhaps might be a little bit too strong, but as long as Jason's not saying anything, I think we'll be all right. The next thing we want to create is these little ridges down here. So they're going to be situated in this end. So the way I did that was I came up and I created a shape. I'm going to put the shape tool right here. And I believe I used a rounded rectangle.
Very good.
So I'll come in here and create a new layer and simply draw out a little rectangle there and use my little trick Alt move, and holding Shift will make sure that they remain in the same vertical or horizontal axes. So something like this, and perhaps we can put one even down here. Like that, and then I'll have to, what you call, merge a bunch of layers here, but it doesn't take very long. Merge linked, like such, and then we're going to go in and put an effect on these guys. So this time, we could just do a standard Bevel and Emboss. I think that'll do the trick, just like that, and then just try and keep it somewhat tight, something like that. And it doesn't actually look too bad, it's just like it is right now. We want to go down, and I'm actually pretty happy with that. Maybe turn the size a little down so it's a bit more rough.
That's good.
And then we're happy. So So far, we've almost completed this thing. Perhaps we should add some more scorch marks. But what the real visible thing is this white wear and tear of the side of the gun. So to create that, I'll come in and I'll choose a new brush. And come down here. Let's see if I can find it. Something like that looks pretty good. And perhaps change the size down a little bit. And choose a whitish color. So what we'll sample a color from here. If you hold Alt, you can get a little dub tool. And then come out here and sample it up. Even brighter. Very close to white. And then I'll come out and start drawing. And, oh, my opacity is 12. That's why we're not seeing anything. So start creating like scorch marks here. Okay. Something like this. And let's see. Maybe a little bit up here. And especially around the edges, it's a good idea to have them. That kind of gives a nice touch. Turn up a little bit here. Come over here. Alright, and we're not going to be leaving them like they look right now. We're going to be blurring them a whole lot, so they'll look more subtle. Okay, so with this, I'm going to come in. Let me go ahead and try and change the size to overlay here. I think that'll give the effect I want. Yeah, so they disappear around the black where they before were overlapping. And then I'll come in and say filter, blur, motion blur, and add some blur to it. So now we have this nice, perhaps I should have gone with a complete white, but now it looks like there's actually a different coat of color underneath the one that's been scraped off. Let's try maybe a value of 5, 6. I like that. And then to get rid of the excess around here, I'll come in and choose my base layer, select where the base layer is not, and then come back up to the final layer here and hit delete and get rid of it.
Well, what some people may be thinking is, unless...
This here?
Yeah.
Yeah, we're about to get to that.
Oh, okay.
So
I didn't want anybody to think that that's what was accomplishing that.
No, this was accomplishing this effect here, and upping effect up there. Now I go back with the same brush again, and just do a simple splotch with a larger brush. So I'll choose a brush here, and bump up the size here, and this looks like a pretty cool brush. Maybe this is more interesting. And then let's get more of the whitish color than we did even more, so even higher tint. And create with a little more of, I'm wondering why it's, that's alright, that's about right. So create this kind of same pattern. So again, the only difference is just that my color is not white. I actually kind of like this better. So that's the effect that I achieved, or that's the tool I used to achieve that effect. Alright, so now the next thing is the little streaks down here, the little stripes. We'll be adding them in this end naturally. So I'll come out here and maybe put them about here and about here. And what I'll be doing is creating little red streaks here. I'll just steal this color from here so we don't have to sit here and pick our own color. And so a dark red, and simply fill these areas. Now, a good way of picking a color, I want to point this out, so if we don't cheat it, is to pick your own color and go over here and then just switch to hue and then just drag it to a reddish color. And what you get now is a color that has the same, in this case, both saturation and value than your base color. So that's going to let your textures blend a whole lot better. Create a new texture here and fill them. Or you can come in and say, right-click, fill, and do pattern no, do foreground color, okay? So that fills that area. And again, if we want to get rid of the excess here, I'm going to do that in a second, we'd come out and select the bottom layer, select where the bottom layer is not, and then hit delete as we go back to our streaks here. But before we're done, I'm going to put a black line around these. So switch the color here, right-click, stroke. Where's that? There. And let's just do, let's say 1 or 2 pixels. Let's try 2. That's about right. And now I'll do the trick. I'll come out here and select my base layer, click out here, select my streaky layer here, and hit delete. And that'll take him out. Alright, so we're getting close here. Even though we're using some different colors, but the principle is basically the same. Huh? Those are really ugly? Alright, well we can change them. Yeah, okay. I agree, they were ugly. Jason's busy behind me frowning.
Yeah, I guess.
He's awfully quiet over there. Okay, so now to create this kind of more of a rough look, I'm going to come in on here and again add my wonderful noise. So add noise and a little bit more noise than that, and hit OK, and come in and add a little blur. Kind of actually before this, I kind of want some more contrast to this. I'm going to put some contrast in it. Like that, and then do the blur. Let's try 0.5. Okay, and maybe 0.4. And then to make it seem like they're more part of the base, I'm just going to use the erase tool. You can do a mask if you want to. I'll just use the eraser here and a slightly smaller brush. Actually, I'd really like to see a square brush for this. So let's see. See square brushes? There it is. See square brushes anywhere?
Sitting there on it.
Come down here and maybe get something like that. And take the opacity down a little bit, and then just start kind of erasing this away to make them blend more with our base texture. Okay, so finally perhaps we come in and just perhaps turn the lightness up a little bit and turn the saturation down a little bit. Like that, so they blend a little bit better. Okay, so a pretty cool texture actually.
That's not bad.
I kind of like that this is much more standing out. At this point, I'd like to stop and show them how it looks in Max.
Okay.
And then we'll return to Photoshop afterwards.
Okay.
So.
Go ahead and. Well,
we gotta save them.
Exactly.
So I'm gonna come in here, and I can leave this visible because I'm covering everything up. So you'll just see a bunch of lines where we haven't done the painting yet. So I'm gonna come in to Save As and choose JPEG, and once we go to export to Unreal, we're going to be working with going from a BMP bitmap to a PCX.
Right.
So we could just for now actually just stick to a BMP, and I'll call this gun. What do we call it? Gun texture.
Yeah, sounds good.
And come over here and leave it at 24-bit. That's okay. When we go to Unreal, we're going to end up with textures that are 8-bit only. So over here, I'm going to come in and instead of my diffuse checker here,
You were right.
I was right. I'm going to put a bitmap in here. All right, and a bitmap, BMP here. And we're not in the right spot.
Remember where you put it?
I'm thinking. I think I did.
Textures?
Under lesson. Yeah.
Textures. There you go. There you go.
Okay, so now inside here you can see, well, we got a little bit of distortion. We can fix that in the texture editor. But the gun, front of the gun looks really, really nice. Perhaps we can go in and edit this in the UV.
All right, so what Philip's wanting to do at the moment, I assume, is let's just go ahead and take a quick break and save what we've got. Okay, that sounds good. Just in case we get any crashes or anything bad, we'll be right back in a second. Okay, so now we've taken a minor little break, and now we're back here looking at the gun inside of 3ds Max again with a new texture that Philip has placed on there. And it's got a little bit of stretching, and show them how they can fix that.
Okay, so as we see, we're a little bit of a elliptical circle. That's a bit of contradiction there. But to fix this, we go into our UV unwrap modifier, and I'm going to hit Edit in here, and I'm going to be selecting the vertices, sorry, the UVs, and in this area. So I'll come up here. If you want, you can say, see if I can find it. There it is. Say, well, I want to pull these guys here here, see if I can show them the viewport while I do this, and just go ahead and pull them back a little bit. Actually, that's pretty much almost. So I just didn't align them well enough when I did the unwrapping. So now they're aligned down there, and you can see now we have a nice circle.
Very nice.
All right. So now we're going to be creating the top of our texture, and of course it's also on the other side.
Yeah, that's the beauty of stacking up the UVs as we were doing earlier.
So now we're going to be creating the top of the texture. So I'm going to go back to Photoshop.
All right.
And here's the map where we left it.
All right.
And we're going to be creating the top of our texture here. So I'll do the very, very similar steps as before. I'm going to make a new folder, and I'll call it top. And in this, I'll put a new layer, and I'll come in and start drawing out this new layer. So tink, 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 tink. With the polygonal tool, tink, tink, and just keep going. Okay, almost there, because Jason's not saying anything. That's better. Okay, so now it's closed up, and again, we're going to go in and find work on some kind of base colors. Basically, going to be the same principle as we did over here. You can see also over here they're very, very similar. If we did anything drastically different, it would not look very good. So I'll go ahead and just sample a color and go ahead and fill this area with this color like that. Come in, and I think everybody can guess what I'm doing next. Add a little bit of noise. Go down and do my favorite trick, the little grain. Speckle. Hit OK. Put some blur on it.
Blur.
A little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more. Something like that. And then go in and get my burn tool out and burn some edges.
Burn.
Perhaps a little bit less exposure.
Yeah.
Just a little.
Down to about 40 or so.
Yeah, you can get far by keeping your exposure low. 20 will definitely make a noticeable difference, but it won't look too burned.
And you want to keep this one a little bit cleaner. If you look at the other texture, you've got. I mean, it's a little cleaner look, I guess.
Oh, over here?
No, the original top texture. Hey, got it.
Okay. Oh, I see. All right. Guess I wasn't really paying attention then. We might be able to still do the how I created this. I see is actually a Gaussian or a motion blur. So I might want to just jump back and do a motion blur instead. We'll see what a motion blur does at this point. I probably don't. Nah, I won't. It'll never get the same. So okay, I'll walk down by history and do the motion blur instead. So a motion blur, like that, and okay. So okay, now we're a little bit more on track towards that look. So now I'll do the burn here. Just burn the edges, maybe a little splotch here, and then I'll come in and add a second noise. Maybe noise of 2, something like that. So now that looks a little bit, actually a lot more similar than we got over here. The next thing is we can go ahead and create the little lines, just like I did before. So again, this is pretty much the same technique I'm using. Come in here, do a line, and start drawing out. Again, we have this flip. In other words, this is the front and this is the back. So I'm going to come in here and perhaps it's easier if I actually put some of the main areas of interest down before starting trying to mimic these lines. So instead, I'll go in and put the little holes in here. Instead of the circle as we've used so far, I used a polygonal tool. And when you create the polygonal tool, you can actually kind of orient it. So I'm kind of going to turn it in a direction like this. And let me go ahead and pick a darker color here and put it on a different layer. So we'll be able to also kind of punch that through our base texture. So something like this. And then go ahead and move it in. And go ahead and duplicate it. And I'm just going to freeform it over. Oops. So I don't know. I think I did that wrong. Try again. So we have the same length of the both like that, and then we'll put it over here. If you hold shift, it'll snap to the horizontal or vertical direction. Okay, so with this, perhaps I want to move it just a tad less. That looks a little bit better. So with this now, I'll go in and do the little chiseling. So effects, bevel emboss, smooth, integral is fine, but instead of smooth, I'll choose a soft chisel. So we get this, and we want to go down instead of up, and perhaps soften it out a little bit. And this size looks about right. Something like that. And the next thing we're going to be doing here is building this little glowing I got on here. This is actually my old texture. Let me go ahead and show the real one. We went through some different color choices. Ended up with a more blue one. Kind of looks like the eyes in those Final Fantasy characters. So to create this, I'm going to come over here and create a new layer and basically create a circle where I want the blue to appear. So I want the blue over here and I want the blue over here. And go ahead and fill that with a similar blue. So either I can just right click and say fill, or I can use the paint bucket. Okay, so now we're filled, and I'm thinking, no, actually, you know what, instead of filling, we're just going to do a straight gradient. So I'm going to come up to my gradient tool, and you'll have to create your own custom gradient to do this. And the way you do that is you come up here and basically just say new gradient, give it a name, we'll call it my gradient. So it shows up here, and close here and click it up here, and it'll come down, it'll create a gradient editor. And what I want to do is I want to make the first color very opaque, so it's 100%, and then the last color, goes out. The last color here, I'm going to make more transparent. Let's say something like 60. And for this color here, I'm doing the background color, and over here I'll be doing the foreground color, and hit OK. Alright, so now I'll come in and pick as my foreground color, and maybe a darker blue. Sorry, that's my background color. I'll pick the same blue here. Okay, and then as my foreground color, a darker blue. Something like that. So now we have a dark blue that slowly fades off, and a lighter blue as the transparency decreases. And then naturally we want a circular gradient. So something like that. So maybe a little bit. Maybe something like that, a little bit more dense. And what I'm going to do now is go ahead and make this guy glow. So I'll come under Effects, Outer Glow, and it comes up here. And I'm going to be picking my color here. I'll pick one closest to the edge, and then come in and add the size up a little bit and add the spread out a little bit. So I can keep the size somewhat low. I'm sorry, keep the spread somewhat low, keep the size somewhat big. Yes, it gives more of a diffuse feel. And turn the opacity up to make it a little bit pronounced, something like that. So now it's more of a glowing sphere than anything. And now to make it blend with this, we'll have to come in and draw a mask. So I'm going to turn this off for a second and come down here and select my two shapes I have down here. And go ahead, and I don't want it showing up here, I only want it to come in here, so I'll have to shrink it down. So modify, contract. Let's try with, what's your guess? 6 pixels maybe?
Yeah.
7. So, okay, modify.
6 would have worked.
Alright. That's better.
Okay, 1 whole pixel.
So with this, now come up here and hit the mask button, and it'll actually do it for you. Cutting out the mask so that it looks like this is beneath. This is a lot more intense, so maybe we'll go ahead and come back to our color here and go ahead and try and probably add some brightness contrast to this thing and see if I can help it that way. A little bit more bright, and a little bit more contrast. So it's more of a glowy effect, closer to this one. All right. So the only thing perhaps is I want to blur this line a little bit more. I'll get the blur tool out. Make it a little bit more diffuse. And again, I'm not blurring the mask. I'm only blurring the edge of my circular shape.
And you may want to show them that you know you're doing that because over in your...
Oh, because over here I got my icon. I got the little paint icon. If you click the mask, you'll get the little mask icon.
There you go.
Okay, so with this, we can come back out now, and so this is a little bit more of a hardcore than over here, but I think it'll work. We'll come in and start creating perhaps these little streaks here in the front. So I'll come in here, and again, this is all pretty much just like we did it before. Little streak here, and a little streak here.
Now, will alignment be an issue with the other streaks so that they wrap all around? I mean, I noticed back there with your original texture that they seem to be aligned up pretty well.
They will probably have to push and pull them a little bit.
And the reason is, I can go ahead and point out, it's because if you look at this texture here, it's a little bit scaled down further than the one on the left-hand side.
Exactly. That's very right.
Uh-huh. I'm just pointing out some extra things. I'm letting you do your thing, and over here checking out the website, making sure everybody's getting along nicely.
And it's not letting me sample here. Why is it not letting me sample? I'm thinking. Create a new layer. There we go.
You're on your mask.
Oh, it's on my mask, that's why?
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, so now I'll fill this here. So just right-click fill. And, yes. And then I'll stroke it. It's a dark color. Okay. And then I'll come in and do my little trick as before. Select here, select here. Select everything around of the base layer, and then with that selection, come up back to the top and just hit delete, and it'll take it right out. And then we'll go in and start breaking this up a little bit. First of all, we'll come in and add some noise. And then secondly, we'll come in and... Oh, that's crazy.
Wow.
All right, we'll come in and paint this out a little. So I get my eraser, and it switches to my square brush. And I'll just start erasing out. Looks like I can get a little bit more opacity going here. Just making it look like normal wear and tear. And then we come back with a little slightly larger brush and just erase through. Again, this could be done with a mask, then you would have the ability to come back and add back to it. And I'll come in and blur this. Let's try 5. Something like that. And if we wanted to tell you, the thing is, every time you blur it, you lose your grain. So you might want to put some grain back in there again so that it matches better with this texture.
And don't forget on the other one, you'll notice that the colors are off with your 2 bands on the side.
Are they that much off? Yeah, a little bit off.
Yeah, remember you did that there.
I did that brightness contrast. So we lower the heading brightness a little bit. A little bit less. And
yeah, somewhere in there.
something like that. Okay. Okay. Then to work on the back, again, just some shapes here, some rounded rectangles shapes. I'll come in here and start.
New layer.
Put a new layer in here and start painting them out. And you can see here is actually this might be posing a problem. You'll see that when I did the motion blur, it kind of feathered the edge a little bit too much. We might want to come in and just clone stamp this back in on the right layer, of course. Just, you know what I mean? Like it fades off before the texture actually is supposed to end. So we might want to just do something like that so that we're sure that our texture won't abruptly end and have like a white line through it. And then again, we can come in and perhaps cut it off here. Something like that. Maybe a little bit too close. It'll work. If not, then worst case scenario, you can always come in and just slightly push your UVs back in. So back on our new layer here, again, which we should have been naming. Take a black color here and just kind of mimic the same action I got going over here. So something like this. Let me move him over. And then just move him down and move him down as we build layers. And one more. Okay. And then we'll come over here and merge all these guys just by linking them back up. And then say merge or merge linked. And then what we could do is actually steal the same layer style as we have over here. So I could come to the other folder here, my side folder, and come down and find my little rectangles. I believe are these guys. Nope. They are...
Yeah.
All right.
I'm
so,
whispering little things in Philip's ear.
Come in here and say copy layer style, and then come back up and just paste that layer style. It'll save us a lot of trouble, hopefully. And this is the other guy here, so paste layer style, and it'll indent it similarly as we did before.
Right. Very nice.
All right. So what else are we missing? Some little lines.
Some lines and some paint chipping.
And some paint chipping. Okay. So lines again, just the line tool. New layer. And again, if we want to have the same kind of lines, then I think at this time I'll just kind of make it up on the fly. Maybe something going this way, one going out here, one coming out here, and then one maybe change the direction. And what kind of lines do we have in the back? Some double, yeah, that's kind of cool. I don't think I want to change direction over the little bars. I actually do that. We'll do that again then. Change direction here. Maybe have one a minute closer. Something like that. Yeah. And we got some just running straight back here. And we'll have this change direction out to here. And maybe one that runs in here, and one that runs back here, and just straight out there. Maybe something like that. Again, artistic freedom will let you draw your lines however you wish to have them. We'd have one more going straight up here, and maybe it comes out that way. And then we'll go in and just simple pillow emboss that. So bevel emboss, and then choose pillow emboss, and you'll see they get indented. And we want to go down and perhaps a little bit, taking the size down at least to make it a little bit more tight, like that, and softness at 0. And again, we could have gone over and just copied the effect. In this case, I'll just do something like this. And we'll need to, let me adjust these some more. I'm not looking right. So bevel and emboss, and let's try and increase the depth. Let's get a little bit more strong. And then what can we do here? Take the size down even to 0. Yeah. And we'll only do values between something like that. Maybe we'll put a little bit of color back in. Maybe just something like that. And then to delete the outer ring here, I think the main difference between this one and this one is merely that my brush was a lot thinner here. That's why this looks perhaps a little bit too soft. It might just be the fact that we're all the way zoomed in. These guys are pushing up. We can try and flip it and instead of going down, we'll go up. Yeah, maybe. Yeah, that probably does look better. Okay, and then I'll do a little trick with coming down here and selecting this area and then coming back up here and deleting all this excess of lines. Okay, so we're getting closer to getting done. We're missing the little scratches, so I'll get a brush here and this time I'll do it like a more white color. And perhaps let's do it, because we have the other one, I need to do a layer to do this. So again, we'll do it in 2 passes. We'll do first an area more along the edges, perhaps something like this, and then go ahead and motion blur that. One more here. So filter, blur, motion blur, and that's actually okay. And come in and delete again all the
Excess.
Yeah, excess is how you pronounce it. And perhaps just turn it a hair down. Something like that. Okay. And then we'll add the last little splotches. I can do that on the same layer. So just get the brush again. And maybe add a splotch back here. Like that. Maybe something in the front here. A little too much? Yeah. I heard him grumping.
Not grumping, just look bad.
I think this brush is, perhaps not the best for it. Let's try again.
That's better.
That's better, yeah. I agree. Okay, so that's pretty much, that looks nice. That's pretty much how we generated this material over here. So now let's go ahead and save this. Save as. Bitmap. And go back and look at it in 3ds Studio Max. And we'll probably have some problems with the fact that we have a big, I didn't consider this when I painted it, we have a big lump in the center of our gun. So these are going to be slightly distorted. I should have looked a little bit closer at my reference. I just kind of got carried away and started painting. You wanna look at, I'll point out because I know what's going to happen. You want to look at, not this one, sorry, here. You want to make sure that, as I have not done, that these little triangles here are outsides of the slopes here. You need your mesh slopes up here and here. Right now we can have them sloping up and down, so that's not going to look too good, unfortunately. We'll go back here and say this is what I'm talking about. Right there, they're sloping up. So if I'd been a little bit smarter, I would have looked at my reference, but I got carried away painting. We can probably adjust it a little bit and also align this up. We'll come in under Edit in here. And let's go ahead and let's try and grab this row here. And we'll look at the view in the same time. And pull them back like that. And we'll need to pull something like that, maybe. Almost there. I'll have to put this back though. Yeah, I think I made them too wide, didn't I?
Yeah.
Oops. It's the camera fright. It's the stage fright. I don't want to see this. Come on. So I could align them up like that, but what we'll have is a little bit of an edge here, so I have to go in and paint some extra on my texture in the front, but then we could actually align it up. It's getting very close.
Of course, you can always compensate by doing the sides as well, so that you can bounce back and forth between the two. Because the sides stand room to actually scale up as opposed to down to match the top one.
Yes. I don't think I want to sit in here and push and pull too long because it's just always maybe a little bit too much of work. We could pull this the other way and push them back like that. So we're going to get a little bit of streaking action. So we can blame this on the Dane. I should have looked a little bit better on my reference. But that's pretty much how we're looking so far.
All right. Did you want to real quickly go over like just one of the handles?
Okay. Do we have...
If nothing else, talking about one.
Okay. I'll explain how I did one.
Yeah, that's good.
The one here, you can see they're made, the way I made them was basically by making a texture. I can demonstrate it here next to him. Come in here, put him up here, and we'll go to the surface here. And so we could, for instance, fill this texture, fill this area with, first we'll just fill it with a solid color. I'll just do a white color so it distinctly stands out. So I have this, and say we want this pattern repeated over it, you'd have to come out and make a new custom pattern. So the way to do this is File, New, and then do 100, press by 100, and come out and draw your pattern. Now in this case, we're actually so small, so this is way too large. I'm going to put this down to maybe 5 by 5 pixels, and zoom in a whole lot.
And a new layer, maybe?
A new layer, correct. So what I did in here was I came in, I got a little pencil out here, and set it as the smallest size, and just drew somewhat of a cross like that. And perhaps we want a little spacing, so we could take it out here, and take it out here, and take it out. It looks like my color was a little off-white earlier. So it's only in the center, like that. And actually, let me go ahead and just erase that. It'll be easier. So erase with the brush size of 1. And an opacity of 100. Let me turn this off, make sure we're breaking through. It looks like it's too small to do these. Okay, I'll just redo it. So I'll delete this, and then I'll paint a new cross. And this time I'm doing it correctly. So this is what you want, and throw this out here, and come up and simply say Edit, Define Pattern, and we'll call this cross. And you're now allowed to close this, and over here I can come back now and come in under Edit, Fill, and choose the pattern by choosing Pattern here, and then come down and choosing Cross. And it'll generate all these little guys, and those are all the little guys I had. And what I did was, if I change my my base color here, so let's go ahead and get a new layer here and put them on that, and then change the little base color here somewhere more towards the other handle color. What I did was I just did another emboss those guys. So File, Bevel and Emboss. And let's go Pill Emboss now. I think I ended up just doing a standard emboss. And I'm going to go down, and I'm going to soften this a little bit. There we go. And then just take the fill out. So this is about how I created that pattern for the gun. Then, of course, you can come in and say, well, I don't want it in the edges, just like I did over here. I don't want it in that edge, and I don't want it here. So that's kind of a similar way of removing. And again, you could have done that with a mask.
Okay, that's good. I think we've definitely covered enough techniques that you can texture the entire thing. So that's kind of our first CD or VTM out there that actually has so much real-world texturing on it. But Philip, don't worry, man, you've done a great job.
Besides missing to looking at the reference there.
Yeah, with the exception of that. So that's going to conclude this section here. So all the way up to this point, you should now know how to actually model a weapon in 3ds Max. You should know how to lay out your UV coordinates. And you should know how to come into Photoshop and at least have some basics on where to get started with texturing. And now from here, more to go. Let's see, what are we going to be taking a look at next?
Probably animation next.
Probably some animation. All right. Well, with that concludes this section. Thanks, guys.